Greetings everyone, and welcome to the Mobile IT Community of Interest, the monthly meeting for November. Thank you very much for joining us today. Before we get started, I would like to review how to use the Gotowebinar system in order to optimize your experience today. Let me explain briefly how you can interact during these community monthly sessions using the Gotowebinar system. You have all been put on default mute settings due to lots of participants on this call. However, you can get the audio over the telephone or the speakers on your computer to improve sound quality if needed. The panel is set to hide automatically. Please use the orange arrow button to show or hide the control panel as you wish. You can change the setting on the view menu at the top of the panel. You are encouraged to please forward any questions that come up during the questions session at the end. You will be read some questions from a poll session that we have that's intertwined within the presentation. And you can select your answers from the screen by clicking on the choices provided. And at the end of the meeting, we'll have a quick follow-up survey. Please respond to these questions so we can incorporate your feedback into the work of the community and help improve things going forwards. Thanks very much, and we now start the presentation. I'm Stuart Young. I represent Fiatech in Europe and the Middle East. On behalf of all of us at Fiatech and Comet, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for the Mobile IT Community of Interest monthly meeting. Today's presenter is Ben Feltham from Skanska. Ben will present the results of a study on the use of interactive design boards on the Crossrail project in the UK. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to take a minute or two to introduce Fiatech and the community of interest to those who are not members of Fiatech and those who are new participants to the community. Fiatech is a member-based organisation with an objective of accelerating the deployment of technology in the capital projects industry. We have nearly 100 member organisations and partners, including academia and subject matter experts, and also companies from the vendor field as well. We welcome new members to participate in all of our activities. Our goal is to lead global development and adoption of innovative practice through the integrative view of construction work. Nothing synthesises this view better than the perspective of our members, and as Todd Sutton from Zachary expressed, the Fiatech projects and initiatives associated to mobility have been key sources of information, guidance, and subject matter experts that are leveraging our resources to deliver millions of dollars in benefits and pounds and euros. If you're interested in joining in or would like more information, please drop me a line at young@fiatech.org. Why mobile IT is a question I'm often asked. I'd say at the core of Fiatech's interest, we are creating this mobile IT community of interest. Mobile technology has clearly enhanced project performance, but we believe it's only just scratched the surface. There are still many opportunities for the industry to increase productivity through improved project information flow. As we mentioned before, in Fiatech we strive to solve practical problems and the challenges associated to implementing mobile technologies which are of a practical nature. We as a community hope to realise these potentials, and with your help we can make a real difference to this industry and increase productivity. As such, the objective of the community is to bring together project stakeholders, their ideas to improve efficiency in the field using mobile IT, and share the knowledge to implement those ideas in the industry. Participants in this community get together in two ways. Firstly, through monthly meetings, such as this one, where all participants come together to learn about specific applications and technologies. And second, participants get together through the subgroup meetings, which focus on specific topics of interest to the community, and in which participants may carry out work inside their organisations to advance the knowledge on implementation of mobile systems. Deliverables from the community developed by the subgroups would include reports, test pilots or use cases of the work being carried out. These can give insight into the benefits, challenges and costs involved in the use of new technology and applications. Furthermore, work inside the community can become Fiatech-wide projects through formal project proposals. This would increase the scale of any given project and involve all Fiatech membership. The community is a joint effort between Fiatech and Comet. Comet is a UK-based organisation whose principal aim is to learn from experience to deliver measurable business benefits in terms of adoption of mobile technologies. As such, this partnership supports the work and objectives of the community. I've been asked over the last few months to give an idea of which areas we've covered, and this is mainly from people who've just joined and haven't been involved in the community from the start. So, of the 9 presentations we've had this year, so far the community is focused on the implementation of different field technologies and integration across various business processes. So starting in January, we had Shania Averill from Dow Chemical. She gave us an overview of how different hardware can be evaluated for suitability to support field processes. In March, we had Neil Pawsey, who provided an overview. Neil Pawsey from Crossrail gave an overview of the mobile strategy on the Crossrail project in the UK. This presentation serves as an introduction for the following 3 presentations coming from studies in Crossrail sites, including today's presentation. The Crossrail project, for those that you don't know, is the largest infrastructure project in Europe at the moment. There are many initiatives coming out of the Crossrail project which are driving innovation, it's believed, across the UK construction industry. For the 3rd presentation, Harrison O'Hara from Costain discussed the implications of health and safety on site and the regulations around mobile strategies and on the actual use of mobile devices at site level. In May, we had John Fish from Ford, Bacon and Davis explain the challenges that are arising from the wave of natural gas projects and how to address such a situation through improved performance from the mobile end user's perspective. The next meeting was from Harry Parnell at Balfour Beatty. He described the pilot test of mobile site forms for infrastructure job sites. In July, we had Christian Riley from Bechtel. Christian looked at the adoption of RFID, the Curtis Island mega project in Australia. And then in August, we had Alice Lung from DPR and Phil Lorenzo from BIM Anywhere show us their evaluation of BIM tools in the field from an end user perspective. In September, we heard again from Neil, Crossrail. This time he presented a specific application showing how low-energy Bluetooth beacons can be used for safety management. And last month, we heard from Marvin Johnson of Bechtel, who discussed the augmented reality technologies in infrastructure. Marvin's study is also part of the Crossrail presentations that community, well, one of the presentations the community has hosted so far. You can find all these presentations online by going to the address being shown at the bottom of the screen. Please do have a look at those. They've been a great source of information, and please share them as you see fit. Also, please provide any feedback about specific topics of interest that you think the community should be addressing. You can do that through the follow-up survey at the end. So thanks very much for that. Today's agenda. Main presentation, as I mentioned, Ben will take us through that. Ben is the BIM manager for Rail at Skanska. This is a joint venture project with Costain. Ben is a BIM lead who has been involved with the development and implementation of BIM in both the rail and construction industries. He currently holds the position of BIM Manager Rail for Skanska, led the initial implementation of BIM on the Paddington Crossrail project, and is now developing the strategy for all Skanska UK rail projects. Ben has also been involved with data management on the client side. This helps to understand clients' data needs within the rail environment. At Paddington, Ben has been championing the use of innovation to support business process on the project. One of the innovation findings received was for the use of smartboard design in review meetings and to support the construction workforce. This will now be demonstrated in the presentation. The Q&A section at the end of Ben's presentation will allow participants to ask any questions to the presenter or the organisers of the community. As we mentioned before, your questions will be read during this section with your name, organisation and position to foster participation in the community. After the questions, we will make some monthly announcements regarding upcoming meetings and subgroup discussions. So Ben, I'll pass it over to you now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stuart. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. If we move on to the first slide. So what I'm going to take you through is what we've done at Paddington using smart technology to enable collaborative design sessions. Now, just to start with, when we talk about BIM on our projects, we talk about improving safety and enhancing relationships through innovation. It's important that we try and get across the message that what we're trying to do is to create a lean, injury-free environment and not necessarily create a model that is used by everyone. People have this perception that BIM is about the 3D model, when obviously it's more about data and how we use that information more efficiently. So moving forward to the next slide. Just for everyone's awareness, this is just a map of Crossrail to show the overall scheme. So you've got from Maidenhead up to Shenfield, and then obviously crosses down into Abbey Wood. From a CSJV perspective, we look after Paddington, Bond Street and Mile End Shaft. The project I'm going to talk about now is Paddington, but we look to integrate what we do across all CSJV projects. So moving forward to the next slide. So Costain Skanska, we're a JV and we are delivering £300 million station at Paddington using BIM. This is due to grow as well because we're now looking at doing the Bakerloo link, which will link the station to the London Underground network. As Stuart said before, it's Europe's largest construction project, and we are looking at a new high-capacity, high-frequency railway. Now, I believe it's around 24 trains per hour that they're looking to run through this network. Moving on to the next slide. I just thought this is a brilliant slide, really, because it shows Paddington Station that was designed by Brunel. And as you can see, if anyone's been through Paddington recently, there's not much change there. And from a construction perspective, this is a listed building, so we have to be careful on what we do. So there's a lot of monitoring on the actual construction site. So moving forward to the next slide. This is an example of where we are actually building the station. Now this is a picture taken from 1870, and when we started in 2012, other than the vehicles, it didn't really look too much different. On the road there we've got a taxi rank which is actually now being relocated, but essentially the station is being built under this street, and it's a top-down construction, so we had to build the roof slab first before we actually put the road back on. And we've reopened the road in February this year, so we had it closed for 2 years since 2012. So BIM was very important into making sure that we handed over that part of the project on time, and I'll show you an example of that later on. So just moving on to the next slide. Here's a 3D view of our station build. You can see there's 4 main levels. There's street level, concourse, intermediate and platform level, but we've now got a station box going in below that which will link to the Bakerloo line. This model here demonstrates really the interface with the street as well behind, and that's Macmillan House, which is a listed building, and that links back onto the station which I showed you earlier, so we have to be very, very careful what we do within this street. Moving forward. This is an image we put together to explain how we're trying to implement BIM on the project. The centre circle there is what we call the stepping stones to enabling us to implement BIM. So we've got smart management. That is all about managing information smartly, capturing data out in the field. Coordination, collaboration, knowledge share and lessons learned. Now it's being aware that we shouldn't be scared of or being afraid of what we do wrong and what we do right, and that how we feed that back into the innovation part of the cycle. Innovation has been very beneficial, as Stuart said earlier, because we have the Innovate 18 program on Crossrail, which is a fantastic opportunity for us as a contractor to implement smart ways of working. The outside circle just gives you some output of what we've managed to do on the project. So we've got data capture. So we've started to use mobile devices out in the field more and linking that back to the design board, which I'll go over in a minute. Team empowerment. It's about giving different members of the team the empowerment to go and deliver this. So an example of that is, from a mobile device perspective, we've actually given devices to the engineers, give them a list of apps and actually let them go and find out the best way of using the device itself. You tend to find it gets a bit more engagement with the use of the device. We've got the injury-free environment / using visual aids for method statements, toolbox talks. Obviously, you've got best practice there, how we feed that back into the Innovate 18 portal. Stakeholder engagement. As I showed you from the images, lots and lots of stakeholders around this project. Design for health and safety. Using the BIM environment to actually develop the design, working in a one-to-one environment enables us to look at different health and safety aspects when we're actually building up the design. We've got quantity takeoff, using the attributes within the model to actually take off quantities, and then 4D and asset management. 4D, if anyone doesn't know, is the 3D model linked to the construction program. So moving forward to the next slide.
Okay, the next one, if I can jump back in, is a question. Let me just bring the question. How many of your projects have access to the BIM model during construction coordination meetings? We've got all of them, most of them, some of them, other, or not applicable. Give you 30 seconds for that one, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to give you a bit longer on that. There's still a few more votes to come in. Okay, a couple more. Yeah, thank you very much. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to, we've still got a few more coming in there. Okay, I'll close that one up now. I'll share the results. Okay, that's interesting. We will make these results available for anybody that's not captured them. Okay, thank you very much for that. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, back to you, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you. When we first looked at how we were going to use BIM within our design meetings, we looked at the mission room. The mission room is actually a product like a 3D cave, so if anyone's ever seen a 3D cave, essentially it's 4 walls with 4 projections, and it enables you to actually stand in that environment, immersive environment. Now the cube was brilliant in terms of initial use and getting understanding of what information we had, but one sort of negative from it was we could only snapshot imagery from the model, so from a review point of view there's a lot of work to actually set up the review, and it was actually limited in terms of the amount of people that could get into the room. From a health and safety perspective, if you've got a linear moving site, so some of our road sites, it is absolutely fantastic for, because you can actually capture video from site and bring that back into the mission room, and you can start looking at behavioural safety. And we did look at different areas around safety on the project, and now that best practice has actually been shared with some of our other projects where we're working on a live rail. So moving on to the next slide.
Okay, the next one is another poll question. Let me just launch that. How is the access to the BIM model set up in the office? Okay, can everybody see that? Give you 30 seconds, but based on the last one, it may need a bit longer. Okay, I'll close that one up and we'll share the results. Thank you very much for voting. I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, back to you, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is where the innovation come in. So we had the actual mission room itself, but we decided we wanted to move into the interactive design board. Now this isn't new technology, but it's the way we've used it is considered an innovation. So essentially it's an interactive board which has 3 elements to it. So we've got the smart technology, which you're probably aware of, which enables us to mark up on any drawings or the model that we produce. We've also got an application which allows us to interact with the model using gestures. So essentially just imagine it like a giant iPad. And the third element is a conferencing software, but this software enables us to project to a mobile device, and the user on the mobile device can actually interact with the model as well, and they're given their own colour within the sessions on the markup. So we've got suppliers across the world, and this enables us to hold those collaborative meetings in one space on the board as well, so that's fantastic for us. The only negative is obviously it's not a submersive environment, but that isn't too bad, too much of an issue if you like. So moving on to the next slide.
Next one is another poll question. Let me launch that. Okay, who attends the review meetings on your projects? Okay, a few more votes to come in. Right, I'll close that one up. That's an interesting one. Not many of the supply chain. Okay. Okay, Ben, back to you.
Okay, this next slide just shows the team setup. It's quite interesting we said about the supply chain there, because on our project we found for this to work really well, we've actually got an integrated design team. So we've got the suppliers, designers, all in one office and one location, and then sub-suppliers of them around the world, but we can still bring them all together with the interactive technology. The images we show here is how we set up the area. Now, as you can see, there's no table, and that is deliberate to stop people using paper drawings and then forcing them to mark up on the screen. And we've actually got single seats there as well. So it's all about pushing the behaviours towards using the actual screen itself. Moving on to the next slide. Here we have an image captured from video that we use the board for. Now, this is the new Eastbourne Terrace street that we designed, and you can see here at this junction there was a bit of unsafe behaviour going on. So what we did is we videoed this for day and night, and the ultimate client was Westminster City Council, and they come up with the scheme and signed off the scheme. So we felt it was an unsafe scheme, and the way that the temporary works around the site was set up was forcing people to walk across the road unsafely, and where the crossing was closed for a couple of years, people actually forgot how to use the crossing, which is quite interesting. But when we brought in Westminster City Council, they instantly saw the issue and they got involved with marking up the potential changes and where the issues are. So we started to look at behavioural safety from that perspective. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, going back to the stepping stones, how we see the project was set up. Now, from a data perspective, the reason why I just mapped out all these different bubbles was just how the project was set up from a data view. So you had the design bubble where you had all this fantastic information being produced, and then you had the construction bubbles where you had different pieces of work going on in different areas. So what we did is try and combine that and make sure that the information that was being produced in the design bubble was being shared with the construction bubbles. So moving on to the next slide. Anyone who's been involved with Crossrail, any sort of rail project, you'll be fully aware of the common data environment. So if we click along this side, I think there's some bits and pieces that pop up. But essentially, this is an environment where we can manage our CAD data, and this also links to the document management system. I don't believe you can deliver BIM successfully without a common data environment. It enables us to get access to the information at the right time, and we had this on the design board as well, so we ensured that what was being reviewed was the latest information. Moving forward to the next slide. Where the common data environment gives us a bit more information as well is we can actually report from that. So we can report what is being delivered, when it's been delivered, who did what, and how much is being delivered. So when I first joined the project, there's a lot of commercial discussions going on about who produced what and when. And by producing this report, like, cut down those discussions within the commercial discussions. So moving forward to the next slide. How we share our information. So we've got a master coordinated model, MCM, and we share that through Navisworks, which is a free bit of software, and it's a read-only view of the model. Remember, the model is one-to-one geospatially located, so the measurements and all the information that is gathered from that is real life. And we also had a temporary works model. Temporary works scheme was huge on this project. I can't remember the value, but in terms of a top-down construction, there's huge amounts of temporary works required. And when we actually put that together with the permanent works, we found in excess of 40 clashes, but we could pick them up again on the reviewing cycle on the interactive design board. And then we also had a construction model, and that was linked to the program, and that was regards to 4D, and that's how we chopped the model up. And we used language to assign names to these objects, which was actually in the engineer's language, so panel and pour numbers, which made interacting with the information a lot better. Moving forward to the next slide. Just to make it visually easier and easier to see on the board and easier to understand when you're reviewing the information, we actually gave a colour, a discipline. That way it's really easy for people to tell what they were looking at without a multicoloured model, which you sometimes see when this sort of information is shared out. Moving on to the next slide.
Yes, poll question this time. Let me get the thing up on the screen. Okay, considering the stepping stones described, how likely is your organisation to look into the IDB type approaches? Okay, everybody's voted. I'll close that one up. I'll share the results. Everybody seen that? Okay. I'll move on to the next slide. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you. From a 4D simulation perspective, we actually use this on Eastbourne Terrace, and it's very, very beneficial to enable us to open the road on time. But where does board come in really, really useful? Was very late on. I can't go into details, but essentially it was a late design change, which we as a contractor had to take on as our own risk. So what we did is we put the 4D model onto the screen in weekly briefing sessions with the people that are actually laying the road. And this is the people going out on site, not necessarily the management level. These are the people out in the field. We had them in there, and because there's very late changes to their methodology of working, they used the model to describe how they would potentially change the methodology. And then obviously using that model, that affected the program because the two are linked. And it is a really, really good way of capturing that change, and just really to give people that feel when they can use gestures to actually look into more detail at the information. So moving on to the next slide. Data capture in the field. This is an example of stuff that we've done in the field, and in terms of the screen as well, some of our survey teams found it very, very useful to have that capability to send information out to the tablet. So they'd set up their forms on the screen, or any sort of information they wanted to capture, go out with a mobile device, mark up any information, and come back to the office and take that off the screen. And they like to do that in their night shift, and they found it saved them a lot of time as well, so that's very, very good. And also we've used other applications, and an example of an application we used was Baystow, which enabled us to do redlining in the field, and we've now developed a report for Innovate 18, which will be shared with the Crossrail community. Moving on to the next slide. Here we've actually tried to capture some savings from using this method of capturing data. So as you can see there, preparation in the office and on-site activity very, very similar, although there is a 15-minute saving there with the mobile device. But really the big change, as you're probably all aware, is the processing of the data. From 5 to 10 minutes maybe if they're using a bulb compared to 2 hours 45 minutes where they had to actually collate the information and pull it together and issue that to the client. Moving forward to the next slide. Here's just how we gathered that cost saving, and it worked out roughly around £100–120 a day based on how much we charge for our engineers. So obviously you pay for the hardware and software within days. Moving forward to the next slide. Again, another look at when we were doing some check-in and analysis. Again, the drop down from 5 hours to 3.5 hours, huge. So you can see there we're really, really trying to gather, and we're doing this by one engineer going out traditional method and one going out with a tablet device. And also linking that back into design review and how we share that with the design team. So we have people out in the field capturing these issues with the design, feeding it through Baystone, and they can review it straight onto the interactive design board and mark up on that design board, capture their data and send it back, and it's almost real time. So it proved very efficient for Eastbourne Terrace, as we're hugely behind schedule with less than a month to go. Moving forward to the next slide. So as well, from a commercial perspective, it's just a simple slide really to show the difference in quality between traditional and mobile device. Okay, and moving on to the next slide. That's it. Thank you very much.
So we're into questions now, and if I can just bring up the questions. Okay. Well, we had one question came in. If there's any more questions, please fire them over now. But we had one question came in about the sharing of the results. We'll do that afterwards. Maybe it wasn't on the screen long enough. I'm not sure. but we can actually share that information. There aren't any other questions that have come forwards. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say, Ben, that would cover the presentation today. Is there anything else you'd like to add to what you've presented?
Not really, but it's just really what we found is, from a perspective delivering this, having a common data environment and to be able to have integrated design meetings has proven very, very successful, and being able to bring people into one place, and the technology, although it's old technology, being used within the construction industry, it's quite revolutionary. So it has proven that we've seen huge amounts of efficiencies, and obviously through Fiatech we'll happily share those efficiencies in the reports that we've developed as well. Brilliant.
Well, thank you very much for that. Okay, well, I'm just going to, if there's nothing else, I mean, we've got, oh, wait a minute, there's some questions arrived. Yeah, here we go. We've got some questions in. Fantastic. Okay. Would other mobile technology integrated into vests, etc., be one of the benefits? And that's from Bruce Cousins. Ben, have you got anything to say to that one?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to you earlier, Stuart, wasn't I, about different mobile technology, and I don't really advocate using one type of system or one type of technology. It's how we get to that information, or how we get to that technology, how we get to that software, and having some sort of toolbox where we can actually go up and grab it and use it for what we need to use it for. And that's something we're trying to develop as well, because you can go one of two ways with this. You can go down one route and then you can't really interact with client systems, or you can go down another route where you have too much. So it's just trying to find that middle ground, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the next question we've got comes in from Harold Mosley. Was ProjectWise integrated EDMS for all stakeholders? ProjectWise, yeah. Ben?
Yeah, in terms of ProjectWise, it's the client system, and all suppliers have to use the system, and it is integrated with the EDMS. So they call ProjectWise an ECMS, so CAD management system, and they've got the EDMS, which is Enterprise Bridge. And essentially, once a drawing is produced, the PDF rendition of that drawing is pushed into EB, and the two communicate. In terms of sharing with stakeholders, I believe TfL and other stakeholders like that who would maintain the station would have access to that information. In terms of sharing outside, one thing that we did at Paddington is we created a weekly fly-through of the model, and we also use that from a health and safety perspective. So it's a fly-through of the model, and it actually shows where activity is going on site. So one of our stakeholders is the Hilton Hotel. And as you can imagine, they have some high flyers go and visit their hotel, and what we did is, by sharing a video with them, they could work out where they're going to put these people in the hotel relative to the noise that we'd be making on site. So that was quite successful.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Okay, another question came in from Bruce Cousins. How about Google Glass or heads, hands up, free display?
Google Glass is quite an interesting one. In terms of using it on site, obviously it's how we integrate with PPE and safety glasses. And another area we've been looking at is the Oculus goggles from a virtual reality perspective. So it's definitely the way it's going, and I'd suggest that the gaming platforms are the way the design route is going, and I can really see potential in that. But again, it's like, I mean, Harrison's done some bits and pieces on this for us, Harrison O'Hara from Costain. It's how we change the health and safety culture to enable us to use this technology in this environment is probably the bigger challenge than actually getting the technology and using it itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we've no more questions here, so I'm gonna move on. Maybe there'll be a few more come in the process, and we go into the next few slides. Let me just finish that up for a second. Oh, we have one more question came in. Fernando, this was yours, I think. Which were the main benefits from integrated design meetings for field personnel? Ben, could you answer that one?
Sorry, what was the question again? I didn't quite catch that.
Which were the main benefits from integrated design meetings for field personnel?
The main benefit was actually being able to access the designers straight away and dealing with issues on site. So an example is Eastbourne Terrace. So when the field engineers went out to quality check or snag check the issue, and if they felt it was a design issue, they could use Baystone to upload it into that system, and that instantly went to the designer, who then could deal with that, whether that needed to be issued to the designer via an RFI or TQ, so request for information technical query, or whether it isn't actually a design issue, it's a construction issue, you need to deal with it. So really it made that element much more efficient, where traditionally the field engineer would go out, capture the quality issues, come back to the office, write a report that would be officially issued commercially to the designer, who would then check it and say, no, half of this isn't a design issue, and send it back. So we could actually real time work out what was a design issue and what wasn't. So yeah, huge saving now.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, upcoming events. We have the Fiatech Annual Technology Conference and Showcase, April 13th to the 15th, 2015. We are currently accepting nominations for SETI Awards, which promote and showcase significant capital projects, industry innovation and achievements in technology. The award ceremony takes place during the Tech Conference and Showcase on the 14th of April. The deadline to nominate organisations and individuals for these prestigious awards is on November the 30th. Please follow the link on the screen if you propose to nominate somebody today. Just one thing I will say, from the organisations that we know of in the UK, Costain were a winner of this last year for their work in and around the self-healing materials, and particularly the self-healing concrete, closer to home. Announcements: we have the next community meeting, which is the 17th of December. Please save the date. We do meet on the third Wednesday of each month. At the same time, 3 o'clock UK time. We have got this follow-up survey that we plan to do. Hopefully that will give us some feedback about the community and help us improve. Finally, we are a little bit early, but I'd like to say thank you very much. Please follow us through LinkedIn, through Twitter, Facebook, and do have a look at the past recordings of the Mobile IT community sessions on YouTube. Without further ado, I'd like to say thank you very much to Ben. Great contribution, fantastic project. I've seen it in action. It's real, it works. People are more than happy with what they're doing, what are they getting from it. So thank you very much. Any questions, please forward them to me afterwards, or Fernando, and we'll do our very best to help you. So thanks very much, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.